I remember the first time I ever read the Divergent trilogy. Veronica Roth created this utopian society where every person was supposed to fit into one of 5 factions, which each featured very different ways of life. These factions were originally formed based on what people felt were the most important values. There was the abnegation, who valued selflessness, the amity, who valued peace, the candor, who valued honesty, the dauntless, who valued bravery and courage, as well as the erudite, who valued knowledge. And of course, I was completely obsessed with trying to figure out what faction I would choose if I was in the book. I knew I wasn't the most selfless person, and that I don't think peace is the most important thing. I also know that I don't think knowledge holds all of the answers to life's questions. I always wanted to be dauntless, because I wanted to be seemingly fearless, just like the main character Triss was. I wanted people to look at me and know that I could take care of myself. But if I'm being completely truthful, I know it would be candor. Because as much as I wish I could be dauntless, I know that I love being blatantly honest, more than I think I would enjoy jumping on and off of moving trains. Despite this, I kept coming back to the dauntless teachings over the candors. Was their values of bravery and courage really the most important thing? In their manifesto, they stated, "We believe in freedom from fear, in denying for the power to influence our decisions. We believe in ordinary acts of bravery, in the courage that drives one person to stand up for another. We believe in acknowledging fear and the extent to which it rules us. We do not believe in living comfortable lives." And I fell in love with the idea that if I was brave, I could become fearless. But is that really how it works? So far, I've used both words bravery and courage, which most of us use synonymously. But I felt in order to truly understand the dauntless lifestyle, it was important to know these words' exact definitions. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines brave as having or showing mental or moral strength to face danger, fear, and difficulty. It is facing your fears head-on. It defines courage as having mental or moral strength or venture to persevere and withstand against danger, fear, or difficulty. It is the ability to do something that consciously frightens you. The common ground between these two words is their relationship with fear. Fear has to exist for bravery and courage to happen, but the differences between them are huge. Bravery is a split-second decision. It is acting without thinking or because of external pressure, whereas courage requires heart. Aristotle, a famous Greek philosopher, believed that courage is a noble virtue. He believed that courageous people are fearful and bold, that they act in the right time, in the right manner, and with the right motivations. And while both are important, today I'll be placing a specific focus on courage, because in order to embrace your fears, there has to be a level of consciousness. In the Dauntless Manifesto, we are reminded to acknowledge our fears and the extent to which they rule us. Fear in broad terms just means that we have something to lose. So when we examine the extent to which it controls us, it actually makes more sense to let it motivate us. Because if you're scared enough to lose something, you should care enough about to fight for it. Ask anyone and they will tell you that nothing worthwhile in life comes easy. In fact, one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do has been my training and participation in kettlebell marathon. It is something that consistently forces me outside of my comfort zone while pushing me to my absolute limit. The event that I participate in is a half snatch, half marathon, which means that for 30 minutes, I do as many half snatches as I can without setting my bell down. When I first started my training, I never thought to the extent that I could learn from it. But the most important thing I've discovered is that while it is physically tiring, it is mentally exhausting. Without the right headspace, motivations, and behaviors, there's no way that I'll finish my set. So while it is a physical event, the outcome is mostly mental. And I'm proud to say that for almost the 3 years I've been doing this, that I've not only grown in my physical strength, but more so mentally. Looking back at my international competition performances in Spain and Poland, I remember that before I even started, I was super nervous about what was to come. As I stood on the platform, my hands were cold, my breath was shaky, and my heart pounded in my chest. In Poland, I even found myself doubting if I was mentally prepared enough for what was to come. But whenever I started to spiral before my set, I had to remind myself that my fear was real, but my justification for it was not. There was no real danger, it was just another workout. By doing this, I was denying my fear the power to influence my decisions and my actions. I did this by changing the way I perceived it. By adjusting how I view my fear in small situations like my workouts, I've been able to grow my courage to larger aspects of my life. But don't get me wrong, growing courage is not a simple task. But the first step is to start small. The second step is to remember where you started. Usually in my workouts, I get pretty frustrated because I'm not always where I think I should be. But really, I've just lost perspective. The first time I ever did a half marathon, I got 241 reps, and I completely shredded my hands. But in my PR from last July, I got 450 reps, and my hands were tear-free. It's all about acknowledging the growth and the progress that you've made. The third and final step is to remember that it's okay to be scared. We all have patterns to unlearn, new behaviors to embody, and wounds to heal. We all have to remember that fear shouldn't shut us down, it should wake us up. Fear is what makes our heart beat, keeps our eyes open, and reminds us to keep pushing forward. Feeling the pain, the fear, the happiness, and sadness is what reminds us that we're alive. And as mentioned in Divergent, becoming fearless is actually not the point. That's impossible. It's learning how to embrace your fears and how to be free from them. Courage is so important in this process because without it, we cannot break the negative bond that fear has on us. Having courage can be worth everything. It can be the difference between life and death, or more importantly, life and living. Franklin Roosevelt once famously said that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. But I disagree with this. By saying that, he is implying that it is unnecessary to be afraid of anything besides fear. But we have to remember that fear isn't bad. Fear is what promotes growth, provides motivation, and creates adventure. The absence of fear gives us nothing. We have to remember that we are not made up of our fear. We are cells building tissues and muscles getting stronger. We are not our limitations, but we are how we choose to push past them. Furthermore, we are not who we didn't get to be. We are everything that we fought to become. Which is why I want to let my fear wash over me and wake me up. I want it to motivate me and to push me to my absolute breaking point and then just a little bit further. Because I want to look back and know that having courage took everything I had, but that it's given me everything I have now. In the Divergent trilogy, Tris had to learn the hard way that the values of selflessness, kindness, honesty, bravery, courage, and intelligence were not independent from each other. The faction system broke down because of this. For example, it forced people to believe that only the dauntless could be courageous, which is a ridiculous notion because nothing in life can be done without courage. There's so many ways to have it in this world too. Sometimes it's laying down your life for something bigger than you. Other times it's giving up everything you've ever known or everyone you've ever loved for the sake of something greater. But usually it's not. Most of the time, in fact, having courage is nothing more than gritting your teeth through the pain and the work and the slow walk toward a better life. But if we really think about it, isn't life all about collecting the scars and the bruises to prove that we showed up and that we fought against our fear? That's why the calluses on my hands are so important to me. They remind me of every repetition I'm getting stronger, especially with the heavy ones or the ones where I feel like quitting or giving up but continue to keep pushing forward. So, when we walk out of here, let's remember that today still has the potential to be the first day, the first step towards a better life, if we let it be. Because we are all one choice away from a completely different life. And I say it's about time we make that choice with intent to embrace our fears in order to find freedom from them. Because I guarantee that if we all do it afraid, we, like the dauntless, will not be living comfortable lives. Thank you.